I never told my son about my $40,000 monthly salary. He always saw me living simply, never questioning, never asking. But when he invited me to dinner with his wife's parents visiting from overseas, I decided to test them. I dressed in my oldest clothes, carried a worn canvas bag, and walked into that upscale restaurant pretending to be broke. What happened that night exposed a truth so devastating that it shattered my daughter-in-law's family forever. And honestly, they deserved every second of it. Let me tell you how a senior executive became invisible in a room full of wealth, and how one revelation changed everything. My name is Diana, and at 58 years old, I've spent 2 decades as a regional director at a multinational corporation. 20 years signing million-dollar contracts, managing thousands of employees across multiple countries, making decisions that ripple through entire industries. But my son, Marcus, never knew. To him, I was just mom. The woman who left early for work, came home tired, cooked simple meals, wore discount store clothes. Nothing special, nothing impressive, and I never corrected him. Why would I? I grew up believing dignity lives inside you, not on display. True power doesn't announce itself. It observes. It waits. It knows. So when Marcus called that Tuesday afternoon, his voice tight with nervousness, I listened carefully. Mom, I need a favor. Lauren's parents are visiting from London. First time here. They want to meet you. Dinner Saturday at Meridian, that fancy place downtown. Please come. Something in his tone bothered me. Not the voice of a son inviting his mother. The voice of someone afraid of embarrassment, hoping I'd fit in, praying I wouldn't be a problem. Do they know anything about me? I asked calmly. Silence. Then, stumbling words. I told them you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're simple, that you don't have much. There it was. Simple. As if my entire existence could be reduced to that one dismissive word. As if I were something to apologize for. I took a deep breath. Okay, Marcus, I'll be there. I hung up and looked around my modest apartment. Comfortable furniture, bare walls, small television. Nothing impressive. Nothing expensive. And right then, I decided something. If my son thought I was poor, if his wife's family came ready to judge, then I'd give them exactly what they expected. I'd pretend to be broke, desperate, barely surviving. I wanted to see firsthand how they treated someone with nothing. I wanted to see their true faces, because I suspected something about Lauren and her family. I suspected they measured people by bank accounts, and my instinct never fails. Saturday arrived. I dressed in the worst outfit I owned. A shapeless gray dress, wrinkled and faded, the kind sold at thrift stores. Worn shoes, no jewelry, not even a watch. I grabbed my oldest canvas tote, pulled my hair into a messy ponytail, and studied myself in the mirror. I looked like a woman life had broken. Forgettable. Defeated. Perfect. I took a taxi to the restaurant, one of those places where menus don't list prices, where a single meal costs more than most people earn in a week. As we drove through the upscale district, I felt anticipation mixed with sadness. Anticipation because I knew something significant was coming. Sadness because part of me hoped I was wrong. Hoped they'd be kind, look past the shabby clothes, see the person underneath. But the other part, the part that spent 40 years navigating corporate sharks, knew exactly what awaited me. The taxi stopped. Warm lights, white-gloved doorman, elegant people entering. I paid, stepped out, crossed the threshold. There they were. Marcus stood near the windows in a dark suit, looking anxious. Beside him, Lauren wore a tailored cream dress with gold accents, perfect hair, expensive heels. She looked flawless as always, but she wasn't smiling. She looked tense, almost embarrassed. Then I saw them. Lauren's parents, already seated like royalty waiting. Victoria, the mother, wore a fitted emerald dress covered in sequins, jewelry on her neck, wrists, fingers, dark hair in an elegant bun. That cold, calculated beauty meant to intimidate. Beside her, Richard, her husband. Immaculate gray suit, enormous watch, serious expression. Both looked like they'd stepped from a luxury magazine. I walked toward them slowly, with small, uncertain steps. Marcus saw me first. His eyes widened. He looked me up and down, swallowed hard. Mom, you came. His voice sounded uncomfortable. Of course, son. Here I am. I smiled timidly, the smile of someone unaccustomed to such places. Lauren kissed my cheek quickly. Cold. Mechanical. Mother Diana, nice to see you. Her eyes said otherwise. She introduced me to her parents in an almost apologetic tone. Mum, Dad, this is Marcus's mother. Victoria looked up, studied me, and in that instant I saw everything. Judgment, disdain, disappointment. Her eyes scanned my wrinkled dress, old shoes, canvas bag. She didn't speak at first, just extended her hand. Cold, quick, weak. A pleasure. Richard did the same. Weak handshake, false smile. Charmed, I sat at the end of the table, furthest from them, like a second-class guest. No one helped with my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter arrived with elegant menus written in French. I opened mine, pretended not to understand. Victoria watched me. Do you need help with the menu? She asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Yes, please. I don't know what these words mean. My voice came out small, timid. She sighed and ordered for me. Something simple. Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it. The phrase hung in the air. Richard nodded. Marcus looked away. Lauren played with her napkin. No one said anything, and I just watched. Victoria started talking. The journey from London. How exhausting. How different everything was here. Then subtly she began talking about money. The hotel where they were staying, £1,000 per night. The luxury car they'd rented. The shops they'd visited. We bought a few things, nothing major, just a few thousand. She spoke looking at me, expecting a reaction, expecting me to be impressed. I just nodded. How nice, I said. That's lovely. She continued. You know, Diana, we've always been careful with money. We worked hard, invested well. Now we have properties in 3 countries. Richard has major businesses, and I oversee our investments. She smiled with superiority. And you, what exactly do you do? I work in an office, I replied, lowering my gaze. A little of everything. Paperwork, filing, simple things. Victoria exchanged a look with Richard. Administrative work. That's fine. Honest. All jobs are dignified, right? Of course, I replied. The food arrived. Enormous plates, tiny portions, decorated like art. Victoria cut her steak with precision. This costs £80, she said, but it's worth it. Quality is worth paying for. One can't just eat anything, right? I nodded. Of course you're right. Marcus tried changing the subject, talking about work. Victoria interrupted. Son, does your mother live alone? Marcus nodded. Yes, she has a small flat. Victoria looked at me with feigned pity. It must be difficult, living alone at your age without much support. Does your salary cover everything? I felt the trap closing. Barely, I replied. But I manage. I save where I can. I don't need much. Victoria sighed dramatically. Oh, Diana, you're so brave. Truly, I admire women who struggle alone. Although, of course, one always wishes to give our children more, to give them a better life. But well, everyone gives what they can. There was the blow. Subtle but deadly. She was telling me I wasn't enough for my son, that I hadn't given him what he deserved, that I was a poor, insufficient mother. Lauren stared at her plate. Marcus clenched his fists under the table. And I just smiled. Yes, you're right. Everyone gives what they can. Victoria continued. We always made sure Lauren had the best. Best schools, traveled the world, learned 4 languages. She has an excellent career now, earns very well. When she married Marcus, we helped quite a bit. Money for the house deposit, paid for their honeymoon. That's who we are. We believe in supporting our children. She looked at me intently. And you? Were you able to help Marcus with anything when they married? The question floated like a sharp knife. Not much, I replied. I gave what I could. A small gift. Victoria smiled. How sweet. Every detail counts. The amount doesn't matter. The intention is what's important. Right then, I felt rage begin stirring within me. Not explosive rage. Cold, controlled rage, like a river under ice. I breathed slowly, kept my timid smile. Let Victoria keep talking. Because that's what people like her do. They talk. They inflate themselves. They show off. And the more they talk, the more they reveal the emptiness inside. Victoria took a sip of expensive red wine, swirling it in her glass like an expert. This wine is from an exclusive region in Bordeaux. Costs 200 pounds a bottle. When you know quality, you don't skimp. Do you drink wine, Diana? Only on special occasions, I replied. Usually the cheapest one. I don't understand much about these things. Victoria smiled condescendingly. Don't worry. Not everyone has a trained palate. That comes with experience, travel, education. Richard and I have visited vineyards across Europe, South America, California. We're quite knowledgeable. Lauren is learning too. She has good taste. Inherited it from us. Richard nodded proudly. It's a hobby we enjoy. Victoria turned to me. And you, Diana, any hobbies? Anything you enjoy in your free time? I shrugged. I watch television, cook, walk in the park. Simple things. Victoria and Richard exchanged another look. A look loaded with silent judgment. How lovely, Victoria said. Simple things have their charm too. Although, of course, one always aspires to more. To see the world, experience new things, grow culturally. But I understand not everyone has those opportunities. I nodded. You're right. Not everyone has those opportunities. The waiter arrived with dessert. Tiny portions like edible art. Victoria ordered the most expensive one. 30 pounds for a piece of cake the size of a cookie. This is delicious, she said after the first bite. It has edible gold on top. See those little golden flakes? A detail only the best restaurants offer. I ate my dessert. Simpler, cheaper. In silence, Victoria continued. You know, Diana, I think it's important we talk about something as a family now that we're all here. She looked up, expression changing, becoming serious, falsely maternal. Marcus is our son-in-law and we love him very much. Lauren loves him and we respect that. But as parents, we always want the best for our daughter. Marcus tensed. Mom, I don't think this is the time. Victoria raised her hand. Let me finish, son. This is important. She looked at me. Diana, I understand you did the best you could with Marcus. Raising him alone wasn't easy and I respect that. But now Marcus is at another stage. He's married. He has responsibilities. And Lauren, and he deserves stability. Stability, I asked softly. Yes, Victoria replied. Financial, emotional stability. We've helped a lot and will continue to help. But we believe it's important Marcus doesn't have unnecessary burdens. Her tone was clear. She was calling me a burden. Me, his mother. Lauren stared at her plate as if wanting to disappear. Marcus had his jaw clenched. Burdens, I repeated. Victoria sighed. I don't want to sound harsh, Diana, but at your age, living alone with limited salary, it's natural for Marcus to worry about you, to feel he must take care of you. That's fine, he's a good son. But we don't want that worry affecting his marriage. Do you understand? Perfectly, I replied. Victoria smiled. I'm glad you understand. That's why we wanted to talk to you. Richard and I have thought about something. She paused dramatically. We could help you financially. Give you a small monthly allowance, something allowing you to live more comfortably without Marcus worrying so much. Obviously modest, we can't work miracles, but it would be support. I remained silent, watching, waiting. She continued. And in exchange, we'd only ask you respect Marcus and Lauren's space. Not seek them out so much. Not pressure them. Give them freedom to build their life together without interference. How does that sound? There was the offer. The bribe disguised as charity. They wanted to buy me off. Pay me to disappear from my son's life so I wouldn't be a nuisance, wouldn't embarrass their precious daughter with my poverty. Marcus exploded. Mum, that's enough. You don't have to. Victoria interrupted. Marcus, calm down. We're talking like adults. Your mother understands, right? I picked up my napkin, calmly wiped my lips, took a sip of water, let the silence grow. Everyone stared. Victoria with expectation, Richard with arrogance, Lauren with shame, Marcus with desperation. Then I spoke. My voice came out differently. No longer timid. No longer small. Firm, clear, cold. That's an interesting offer, Victoria. Truly generous. Victoria smiled victoriously. I'm glad you see it that way. I nodded. But I have a few questions just to understand clearly. Victoria blinked. Of course, ask whatever you like. I leaned forward slightly. How much exactly would you consider a modest monthly allowance? Victoria hesitated. We were thinking 500 pounds, maybe 700 depending. I nodded. 700 pounds a month for me to disappear from my son's life. Victoria frowned. I wouldn't put it like that. That is exactly how you put it, I responded. She adjusted in her chair. Diana, I don't want you to misunderstand. We just want to help. Of course, I said. Help? How did you help with the house deposit? How much was that? Victoria nodded proudly. 40,000 pounds. And the honeymoon? 15,000, Victoria said. 3 weeks through Europe. Incredible, I replied. So you've invested about 55,000 in Marcus and Lauren. Victoria smiled. When you love your children, you don't hold back. I nodded slowly. You're right. When you love your children, you don't hold back. But tell me something, Victoria. All that investment, all that money, did it buy you anything? Victoria blinked, confused. Did it buy respect? I continued. Real love, or just obedience? The atmosphere changed. Victoria stopped smiling. Excuse me? My tone became sharper. You spent the entire night talking about money. How much things cost, how much you spent, how much you have. But you haven't asked once how I am, if I'm happy, if something hurts, if I need company. You've only calculated my worth. Apparently I'm worth 700 pounds a month. Victoria paled. I didn't. Yes, I interrupted. Yes, you did. Since I arrived, you've been measuring my value with your wallet. And do you know what I discovered, Victoria? People who only talk about money are the ones who least understand true value. Richard intervened. I think you're misinterpreting my wife's intentions. I looked at him directly. And what are her intentions? To treat me with pity? Humiliate me throughout dinner? Offer me charity so I'd vanish? Richard opened his mouth but said nothing. Marcus was pale. Mum, please. I looked at him. No, Marcus, please don't. I'm done being quiet. I placed the napkin on the table, leaned back. No more timidity in my posture. No more shrinking. I looked Victoria directly in the eyes. She held my gaze for a second, then looked away, uncomfortable. Something had changed. Everyone felt it. Victoria, you said something interesting. You said you admire women who struggle alone, who are brave. Victoria nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Then let me ask you something. Have you ever struggled alone? Ever worked without your husband backing you? Ever built something with your own hands, without family money? Victoria stammered. I have my own achievements. Like what? I asked with genuine curiosity. Tell me. Victoria adjusted her hair. I manage our investments, oversee properties, make important decisions in our businesses. I nodded. Businesses your husband built, properties you bought together, investments made with money he generated. Or am I wrong? Richard intervened, annoyed. That's not fair. My wife works just as hard as I do. Of course, I replied calmly. I don't doubt she works. But there's a difference between managing money that already exists and creating it from scratch. Between overseeing an empire you inherited and building it brick by brick. Don't you think? Victoria pressed her lips together. I don't know where you're going with this, Diana. Let me explain, I replied. 40 years ago, I was 23. A secretary in a small company. Earned minimum wage. Lived in a rented room. Ate the cheapest food I could find. Completely alone. Marcus stared at me. I'd never told him this in such detail. I continued. One day I got pregnant. The father disappeared. My family turned their backs on me. I had to decide whether to keep going or give up. I chose to keep going. Worked until the last day of my pregnancy. Went back to work 2 weeks after Marcus was born. A neighbor watched him during the day. I worked 12 hours daily. I paused, drank water. No one spoke. I didn't stay as secretary. I studied at night. Took courses. Learned everything at the public library. Accounting, finance, administration. Became an expert in things no one taught me. All on my own. While raising a child alone. While paying rent, food, medicine, clothes. Victoria stared at her plate. her arrogance crumbling. And you know what happened, Victoria? I climbed, little by little, secretary to assistant, assistant to coordinator, coordinator to manager, manager to director. 20 years. 20 years of nonstop work, sacrifices you can't imagine. But I did it. And do you know how much I earn now? I asked. Victoria shook her head. 40,000 pounds a month. The silence was absolute, like someone hit pause on the universe. Marcus dropped his fork. Lauren's eyes went wide. Richard frowned in disbelief. Victoria froze, mouth slightly open. 40,000, I repeated. Every month for almost 20 years. That's nearly 10 million in gross income over my career. Not counting investments, bonuses, company stock. Victoria blinked several times. No, I don't understand. You earn 40,000 a month? That's right, I replied calmly. I'm regional director of operations for a multinational corporation. I oversee 5 countries, manage budgets of hundreds of millions, make decisions affecting more than 10,000 employees, sign contracts you couldn't read without lawyers, and I do it every day. Marcus was pale. Mom, why did you never tell me? I looked at him tenderly. Because you didn't need to know, son. I wanted you to grow up valuing effort, not money. I wanted you to become a person, not an heir. Money corrupts, and I wasn't going to let it corrupt you. But then Lauren whispered, why do you live in that small flat? Why wear simple clothes? Why not drive a luxury car? I smiled. Because I don't need to impress anyone. True wealth isn't shown off. The more you have, the less you need to prove it. I looked at Victoria. That's why I came dressed like this tonight. Why I pretended to be poor. Why I acted broke and naive. I wanted to see how you'd treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see your true colors. And I saw them, Victoria. Perfectly. Victoria was red with shame, rage, humiliation. This is ridiculous. If you earned so much, we'd know. Marcus would know. Why would he believe you're poor? Because I let him, I replied. Because I never talked about my job. Because I live simply. Because the money I earn, I invest, save, multiply. I don't spend it on flashy jewelry or showing off in expensive restaurants. Richard cleared his throat. Even so, this doesn't change the fact you were rude, that you misinterpreted our intentions. Really? I looked at him fixedly. I misinterpreted when you said I was a burden to Marcus? When you offered 700 pounds for me to disappear? I misinterpreted every condescending comment about my clothes, my job, my life? Richard didn't answer. Neither did Victoria. I stood up. Everyone looked at me. Let me tell you something no one's ever told you. Money doesn't buy class, doesn't buy real education, doesn't buy empathy. You have money, perhaps a lot, but you don't have an ounce of what truly matters. Victoria stood up, furious. And you do. You who lied, who deceived us, who made us look like fools. I didn't make you look like fools, I replied coldly. You took care of that on your own. I just gave you the opportunity to show who you are. And you did it magnificently. Lauren had tears in her eyes. Mother Diana, I didn't know. I know, I interrupted. You didn't know. But your parents knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were humiliating me and they enjoyed it. Until they discovered the poor woman they scorned has more money than they do. And now, they don't know what to do with that information. Victoria trembled. You have no right. I have every right, I replied. Because I'm your son-in-law's mother. Because I deserve respect. Not because of my money, not because of my job, but because I'm a human being. Something you forgot throughout this entire dinner. Marcus stood up. Mom, please, let's go. I looked at him. Not yet, son. I'm not finished. I looked at Victoria one last time. You offered to help me with 700 a month. Let me make you a counter offer. I'll give you 1 million right now if you can prove you ever treated someone kindly who didn't have money. Victoria opened her mouth, closed it, said nothing. Exactly, I replied. You can't. Because to you, people are only worth what they have in the bank. That's the difference between you and me. I built wealth. You just spend it. I earned respect. You buy it. I have dignity. You have bank accounts. I picked up my old canvas tote, pulled out a black platinum card, dropped it on the table in front of Victoria. This is my corporate card. Unlimited limit. Pay for the entire dinner with a generous tip. Consider it a gift from a broke and naive mother. Victoria looked at the card like it was a poisonous snake. Black. Shiny. My name engraved in silver. Diana Sterling, Regional Director. Her hand trembled when she picked it up. She turned it over, observed it, looked at me. Her eyes no longer held that superior shine. Now there was something different. Fear. I don't need your money, she said, voice broken. I know, I replied, but I didn't need your pity either. Yet you offered it throughout dinner. So take it as courtesy, good manners, something you clearly didn't learn despite all your European travels. Richard hit the table gently. Enough. This is out of control. You're disrespecting us. Respect? I repeated. Interesting you use that word now. Where was your respect when your wife asked if my salary was enough to live on? Where was it when she suggested I was a burden? When she offered to buy me off so I'd disappear? Richard clenched his jaw. Victoria just wanted to help. Victoria wanted to control, I corrected. Wanted to ensure the poor mother wouldn't ruin her daughter's perfect image. Wanted to eliminate the weak link. Problem is, she chose the wrong link. I looked at Lauren. Her head bowed, hands in her lap, trembling. Lauren, I said softly. She looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know they my parents. Don't finish that sentence, I interrupted. Because you did know. Maybe not about my money, but you knew how your parents are. You know how they treat people they consider inferior. And you did nothing to stop them. Lauren sobbed. I wanted to say something, but they're my parents. I know, I replied. And Marcus is my son. Yet I let him make his own decisions. Let him choose his life, his wife, his path. Because that's how you love. With freedom. Not with control. Not with money. Not with manipulation. Marcus came closer. Mom, forgive me. Please forgive me for never asking, for assuming, for thinking you were. His voice cracked. I hugged him. You don't have to apologize, son. I did what I did for a reason. I wanted you to be independent, value the right things, not depend on me financially, build your own life. But you made me feel like I had to protect you, Marcus said. That I had to worry, that you were fragile. I know, I replied. It wasn't wrong you thought that. That's how you learn to care, worry about others, be empathetic. Lessons money can't buy. Marcus hugged me tightly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Victoria was still standing, rigid, watching with confusion and contained rage. This doesn't change anything, she finally said. You lied, deceived us, came here with hidden intentions, acted in bad faith. That's true, I nodded. I acted, pretended to be something I'm not. Exactly what you do every day. What's that supposed to mean? Richard asked. It means you hide behind your money, jewels, trips, everything you can buy. But inside you're empty. You don't have deep conversations, real interests, nothing to offer beyond a bank account. Victoria gave a dry, bitter laugh. Coming from someone who lied all night, that's hypocrisy. Perhaps, I replied, but my lie exposed the truth. Your truth. And now you can't hide. Now you know I saw you. Felt every comment, stored every insult disguised as advice. And I'll never forget it. The waiter timidly approached. Excuse me, would you like anything else? Richard shook his head abruptly. Just the check. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Victoria sat back down, defeated. Her posture no longer elegant. The posture of someone who just lost something important. Not money. Power. Diana, she said in a softer voice. I don't want this ruining the relationship between our families. Marcus and Lauren love each other. They have a life together. We can't let this. I interrupted. Let this what? Let this ruin your plans? Expose what you really think? Too late, Victoria. The damage is done. But we can fix it, she insisted. Start over. No, I cut her off firmly. We can't. Because now I know who you are and you know who I am. That truth cannot be erased with empty apologies or fake smiles. You treated me like trash and did it with pleasure because you thought you could. Richard cleared his throat. You were the one who came here lying. You provoked this. You're right, I nodded. I provoked this because I needed to know. Needed to confirm what I suspected. That you're not good people. that your money doesn't make you better, that you're exactly the kind who despise others for not having the same things. Victoria wiped away a tear. We're not bad people. Maybe not, I replied, but you're definitely not good. And there's a huge difference. The waiter returned with the check, left it in the center. No one touched it. Victoria looked at my black card still in her hands, then at me. I'm not going to use your card, she said. We'll pay our own bill as we always do. Perfect, I replied. Then keep that card as a souvenir. A reminder that not everything is as it seems. That the woman you scorned all night has more than you'll ever have. And I'm not just talking about money. Victoria put the card down. I don't want it. Don't want your moral lecture either. I pushed it back. Keep it anyway, because something tells me you'll need it. Someday you'll run into someone like me, someone who pretends to be less than they are, and you'll make the same mistake again, because people like you never learn. Richard took out his wallet, pulled out several credit cards, all golden, all shiny. He chose one, put it on the check. The waiter took it and left. No one spoke during those waiting minutes. Silence thick, uncomfortable, heavy. Lauren cried quietly. Marcus held my hand. Victoria stared at the wall. Richard checked his phone, avoiding eye contact. The waiter returned. Sir, your card was declined. Richard looked up abruptly. Declined? How? The waiter repeated. Declined. Do you have another form of payment? Richard turned red. That's impossible. That card has an extremely high limit. Must be a system error. The waiter shrugged. I can try again if you like. Richard handed him another card. The waiter left. Victoria nervously looked at her husband. What happened? I don't know, Richard replied, irritated. Must be a bank error. They freeze accounts for security sometimes when you travel. It happens. I nodded with feigned understanding. Of course, those things happen. How inconvenient. The waiter returned again. I'm sorry, sir. This one was also declined. Richard stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm calling the bank right now. He stormed out. Victoria remained seated, ashamed, humiliated. This has never happened to us, she murmured. Never. What terrible timing, I commented without emotion. Marcus looked at the check. Mum, I can. No, I interrupted. You're not paying for anything. I took out my wallet. Simple old leather. Pulled out another card. This one wasn't black. It was transparent, made of heavy metal. A card less than 1% of people in the world possess. I put it on the table in front of Victoria. She looked at it. Her eyes widened. She recognized what it was. That's a Centurion card. That's right, I replied. American Express exclusive invitation. Minimum annual spending requirement, $250,000. $5,000 annual fee, just for having it. Benefits you can never imagine. Victoria said nothing. The waiter took the card carefully like something sacred. He returned in less than 2 minutes. Thank you, Miss Sterling. Everything is settled. Would you like the receipt? It's not necessary, I replied. The waiter nodded and left. Victoria continued looking at the space where the card had been. I stood up, took my old wallet, canvas tote, looked at Victoria one last time. The dinner was delicious. Thank you for the recommendation. And thank you for showing me exactly who you are. You saved me a lot of time, energy, and many future disappointments. Victoria finally looked up, eyes red, not from crying but from contained rage. This doesn't end here, she said, voice trembling. You can't just humiliate us and walk out as if nothing happened. Lauren is our daughter. Marcus is our son-in-law. We'll still be family. You'll have to see us. You're right, I smiled. I'll have to see you at birthdays, Christmases, family gatherings. But now I'll see you differently. I'll no longer wonder what you think of me. I already know. And you'll know that I know. And you'll live with that. Every time you see me, every time you pretend to be kind, you'll remember this night. Richard returned, phone in hand, face pale. There's a problem with the accounts, he said. Temporary block for security. Will be resolved tomorrow. He looked at the table. Did they pay already? Yes, Victoria replied without looking at him. She paid. Richard looked at me. Pride shattered. Thank you, he murmured. Barely audible. You're welcome, I replied. That's what family is for, isn't it? to help each other, especially when someone needs a small allowance. Say 700, or in this case 800, which is what this dinner cost. Richard closed his eyes. Victoria clenched her fists. Marcus approached. Mum, let's go please. It's enough. I looked at him. You're right. It is enough. I turned to Lauren. She was still crying quietly. Lauren, I said softly. She lifted her head. You're not to blame for how your parents are. No one chooses their family, but you do choose how you act, how you treat others, how you'll raise your own children someday. Lauren nodded through tears. I'm sorry, she whispered again. Don't apologize again, I told her. Just learn. Learn that money doesn't define people. That humility isn't weakness. That respecting others costs nothing. And if you ever have children, teach them to see people's hearts, not their bank accounts. Lauren sobbed harder. Marcus hugged her. Victoria looked away. Richard checked his phone again, avoiding all eye contact. I headed for the exit. Took a few steps, stopped, turned around one last time. Victoria, one more thing. She looked at me. Remember when you said you speak 4 languages? Victoria frowned. What does that have to do with anything? Just curious, I replied. In which of those 4 languages did you learn to be kind? Because clearly it wasn't in any of them. Victoria opened her mouth, but no words came out. Exactly, I said. You can speak 100 languages and still not say anything worth listening to. I walked out of the restaurant. Marcus walked beside me. Fresh night air hit my face. I breathed deeply. Felt like a huge weight had been lifted. Not physical weight, emotional weight. The weight of pretending, tolerating, keeping silent. Marcus took my arm. Mom, are you okay? Perfectly fine, I replied. Better than ever. And you, Marcus? Marcus sighed. I don't know. I'm processing everything. I can't believe you never told me about your job, your money, everything you accomplished. I stopped, looked him in the eyes. Does it bother you? He quickly shook his head. No, of course not. I'm proud. Incredibly proud. But I also feel foolish. Blind. You're not foolish, I told him. You simply saw what I wanted you to see. I did it on purpose because I needed you to grow up without depending on me, without feeling you had an economic safety net. I needed you to fight, work, value everything you achieved on your own. Marcus nodded. I understand. But now I also understand why you never complained, never asked for help, always seemed so calm. Because you needed nothing. I smiled. I needed many things, son. Only none of them could be bought with money. I needed to see you grow up, see you become a good man, see you make the right decisions. And I achieved that. Even marrying Lauren, he asked weakly. Even marrying Lauren, I replied. She's not her parents. She can learn. She can change. But that depends on her and on you. On how you build your relationship. What values you choose to follow. Marcus remained silent, processing, thinking. A taxi stopped. I called for a ride as we left. I opened the door. Marcus stopped me. Mum, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you do it? Why come pretending to be poor? Why not just tell them the truth from the beginning? I closed the taxi door, turned to him. Because I needed to know, son. Needed to confirm if my suspicions were correct. If Lauren's family was really as I imagined. And unfortunately, I was right. Marcus lowered his gaze. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for them, I told him. But you do have to decide what kind of husband you want to be. What kind of father you want to be someday. What do you mean? He asked. I mean, you've just seen 2 very different ways of handling money and power. Your in-laws' way and mine. They use it to control, humiliate, feel superior. I use it to have freedom, help without showing off, live peacefully. You decide which path to follow. Marcus slowly nodded. I understand. I opened the taxi door again, got in, rolled down the window. Marcus came closer. Mum, one last question. Tell me, are you ever going to forgive Victoria and Richard? I thought for a moment. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, I replied. Nor does it mean allowing it to happen again. I might forgive them someday when I see real change. When they start seeing people as people, not as numbers. But until then, I'll simply be polite, distant, and extremely cautious. And me, Marcus asked, do you forgive me for not asking? for assuming, for allowing this dinner to happen. I looked at him tenderly. Son, there's nothing to forgive. You did what you thought was right. You wanted your family to meet. That's beautiful. What happened afterward wasn't your fault. It was theirs and a little bit mine too, because I decided to play their game. Marcus smiled weakly. You won. I won, I nodded. But I don't feel victorious. I feel tired and sad because I confirmed something I didn't want to confirm. That some people will never change. That some families are broken even with money. That there are voids no bank account can fill. The taxi driver cleared his throat. Ma'am, should we go? Yes, I replied. Give me 1 second. I looked at Marcus one last time. Go to Lauren. Talk to her. Listen to her. Support her. But also be honest. Tell her how you felt tonight. Tell her what you expect from her family and from her. Because if you don't establish boundaries now, this will happen again and again. I will, Marcus promised. I love you, Mom. And I mean it more now than ever. Because now I know who you really are. And you're incredible. I smiled. I love you too, son. Always have. Always will. No matter how much money I have or don't have. Because love has no price. And that's a lesson Victoria and Richard will never learn. Marcus stepped away from the taxi. I signaled the driver. The taxi started. I looked out the window, saw Marcus walking back toward the restaurant, shoulders slumped, thoughtful. He was probably going back to find Lauren, to face his in-laws, to have difficult conversations. And I felt proud because that meant he was maturing, learning, choosing to be better than the example he'd just witnessed. The taxi sped through the city's illuminated streets. I closed my eyes and thought about everything that had happened. Every word, every look, every moment of tension. And I wondered if I'd done the right thing. If I'd been too harsh, too cruel, too vengeful. But then I remembered every disguised insult, every condescending comment, every look of disdain. And I knew that no, I hadn't been to anything. I'd simply been honest. Finally honest. 3 days passed before Lauren knocked on my door. 3 days of silence, processing, reflection. When I heard the bell ring that Wednesday afternoon, I knew who it was. I opened the door. There she was. No makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, dressed in jeans and a plain shirt. No jewelry, no heels. She looked vulnerable, real, different from the woman I'd seen in the restaurant. Mother Diana, she said quietly. May I come in? I stepped aside. Go ahead. She entered slowly, looking around, observing my apartment with new eyes. Simple living room, old furniture, bare walls. She sat on the sofa when I pointed to it. I sat across from her, waiting, without pressuring, letting her find her words. I don't know where to start, she finally said. Start where you feel ready, I replied. She took a deep breath. I came to apologize, not just with words. I came to explain why my parents are the way they are and why I stayed silent for so long. I listened in silence. Lauren continued, voice trembling. My parents grew up poor in a small village outside London. No electricity, no running water. Working in fields since they were children. They saw their own parents die young from lack of medicine, lack of money. They went hungry. They suffered. And they promised themselves they'd never be poor again. They'd do whatever it took to get out. I nodded. I understand. That explains a lot. They worked like animals, Lauren continued. Saved every penny. Immigrated looking for opportunities. Richard built his business from scratch. Literally from nothing. And when they started earning money, they never forgot what it was like not to have it. That's why they talk about it so much. Why they measure everything by that standard. Because to them, money means survival. Security, never going back to that dark place. It's understandable, I said. Trauma does strange things to people. Lauren nodded. But that doesn't excuse how they treated you. I know. And I want you to know I saw everything. Every comment, every look, every insult. And I stayed silent because I've been doing that my whole life. Staying silent, accepting, letting them control everything. Because they taught me that contradicting them was betrayal. Was ungrateful. And now I asked. Now I understand I was wrong, she replied. That love isn't control. That family isn't blind obedience. That I can love them and still not agree with them. Marcus helped me see it. You helped me see it. That night at the restaurant, when you revealed yourself, when you told them everything, it was like a blindfold had been taken off my eyes. Lauren wiped her tears. I always knew something was wrong. Always felt the way they measured people was incorrect. But I convinced myself it was me. That I was too sensitive. That I didn't understand the world. But you showed me that no, there's another way to live. A way where money doesn't define your worth. Where humility is strength. Where authenticity is wealth. I took a sip of water. Lauren, I didn't come that night to change you. I came to protect myself. To know who I was dealing with. I know, she replied. And I thank you for that. Because your brutal honesty saved me. Saved me from becoming my mother. From perpetuating that cycle. From teaching my future children that people are valued by what they have. I don't want that. I don't want to be that. And your parents, I asked. How are they after all this? Lauren sighed. Furious. Hurt. Humiliated. Victoria hasn't spoken to me in 3 days. Richard sent a message saying I disappointed him. That I chose strangers over my own blood. That I'd regret it someday. She paused. And you know what's strange? I don't feel bad. I feel free. That's good, I said. It means you made the right decision. Lauren nodded. Marcus and I set boundaries. We told them they can be part of our lives, but only if they respect us. Respect our decisions. Stop trying to control us with money or emotional blackmail. And if they can't do that, they'll have to accept a distant relationship. How do they take that? I asked. Badly, Lauren replied. Victoria said we were ungrateful. That they'd sacrificed everything for me. Richard threatened to disinherit me. Cut off all financial aid. As if that were the only thing we cared about. As if our love for them depended on their money. And that's when I realized they really believe that. Really think their value is in their wallet. It's sad, I commented. Very sad, Lauren agreed. Because they have so much and enjoy nothing. They just accumulate, compete, show off. But they never stop to ask themselves if they're happy. If they have peace. If they have real connections with people. They just count their properties and feel victorious while inside they're empty. She was silent for a moment, then looked at me directly. Mother Diana, I want to ask you for something. Tell me. I want to learn from you. I want you to teach me how to live with dignity. How to be successful without needing to prove it. How to have peace in the midst of chaos. How to be strong without being cruel. Because that night I saw something in you I never saw in my parents. I saw class. Real power. A woman who didn't need to shout to be heard. I smiled tenderly. Lauren, I can't teach you that. That's learned by living. By making mistakes. By falling. By getting up. The only thing I can do is share my experience and tell you the path isn't easy. You'll face criticism, judgment, people who won't understand why you live differently. But if you stay true to yourself, if you live according to your values, you'll find peace. And that peace is worth more than any amount of money. I want to try, Lauren said. I want to be better. Not just for Marcus, but for me. Because I deserve to live without that constant pressure. Without that need to impress. Without that fear of not being enough. Then do it, I told her. But don't do it all at once. Do it little by little. Start by questioning your habits, your purchases, your motivations. Ask yourself before every decision. Is this for me or for others? Does this bring me peace or just appearance? Lauren nodded, taking mental notes. And my parents, do you think they'll ever change? I looked at her with honesty. I don't know. Change requires recognizing a problem, and they don't believe they have one. They believe the world is wrong, that people are ungrateful, that they're victims. Until they see that, change isn't possible. But you can change. You can break the cycle. I will, she promised, with Marcus's help. And I hope with your guidance too. You don't need my guidance, I replied. You just need your internal compass. That voice telling you what's right and wrong. That voice you silenced for years to please your parents. Listen to it. Trust it. Follow it. Lauren wiped away the last tears. Thank you, Mother Diana, for everything. For your patience. Your honesty. For not giving up on us. There's nothing to thank me for, I said. Just promise me one thing. When you have children, teach them the value of people, not the price. Teach them empathy, humility, kindness, things that don't cost money but are worth everything. I promise, Lauren said firmly. I promise with all my heart. We hugged. A real, warm, honest hug. No acting, no masks. Just two women connecting as human beings. Lauren left an hour later, lighter, freer, with hope in her eyes. I closed the door behind her, sat back on my sofa, looked around my simple apartment, and smiled. Because this was enough. This was everything. An honest space, an authentic life, real relationships. I didn't need more. I never needed more. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Mom, Lauren told me about her visit. Thank you for welcoming her, for listening, for giving her a chance. I love you more than words can express. I replied simply, I love you too, son. Always. I put the phone aside, sat by the window, watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. And in that moment, I understood something fundamental. Real wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about how much you enjoy what you have, how much peace you feel, how many genuine people surround you, how many times you can look in the mirror and be proud of who you are. Victoria and Richard had millions, but I had this tranquility, this authenticity, this pure love for my son, and that made me infinitely richer than them. So what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Would you have done the same in my place? Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if exposing them like that was necessary. But then I remember every condescending look, every dismissive comment, every moment they made me feel less than human. And I know the answer. Yes, it was necessary. Because people like Victoria and Richard will never change unless they're confronted with the truth. Unless someone holds up a mirror and forces them to see who they really are. That night, I didn't just expose their cruelty. I liberated myself from the burden of their judgment, from the weight of their expectations. I never pretended to be poor again. I didn't need to. I'd learned what I needed to learn, seen what I needed to see, and I'd freed what needed to be freed. Victoria and Richard continued being who they were. Rich in money, poor in spirit. But that was no longer my problem. I'd spoken my truth, set my boundaries, protected my peace, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to pretend. I was simply Diana, mother, executive woman, survivor, fighter, rich in every sense that truly mattered. And that was more than enough. It was everything.